What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and we have a brand new clan in Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. It is the KOJIKI clan. So of course, I'm going to do a full breakdown and analysis. But first, download Gemstone Legends, a mobile RPG puzzle match game. Use the link in the description to start with free stuff, including a bonus hero. Alright, so let's go ahead and start out with the clan trait, and this is just an epic hero, so do note that these numbers are going to be higher the higher the rarity. This trait on the KOJIKI clan is called Ritual of Wind, and it says when an allied champion dies, the champion's strength is increased by 7.3% for 4 seconds. Stacks up to 2 layers. So here are my general thoughts, not just with this game, but in a lot of games that I've played, is when you see skills or effects that depend on having one of your own teammates die, it's not usually what you want to have happening, because you're trying to keep your teammates alive, right? So I don't particularly like traits or skills that are depending on your own allied champions dying, and I pretty much write off any of the text after that. But even if it were good, is 7.3% or higher depending on the rarity a good percentage of strength for only 4 seconds? I mean, sure, if you have like a big blast of damage or energy coming all at once where you're trying to finish them off and it's well timed, it could be, and especially if it starts to get stacked a little bit. But there's only one situation in which I can imagine this trait actually being very good, and that is where you have the recurrence of some kind of hero that can die and come back to life, and die and come back to life, and, well, any kind of multiple resurrection theme is going to be quite good with this effect. And we do have resurrection effects in Bloodline. So that's where I could see somebody really experimenting with this trait and trying to get a situation where you get that trait rolling, and then it could potentially do a good bit of damage. However, there's a lot of other traits out there that take a lot less work and are potentially better anyways. So those are just my thoughts on the trait. Now let's take a look at renowned male KOJIKI's skills, because of course they're maxed out, and that helps us really understand what's going on here. We're going to take a look at the male first and kind of analyze them. I'll give my thoughts, and then we'll take a look at the female. I like to start with the passive because that's the first thing that affects the battlefield, and we can kind of look at that in order of how is this actually going to play out in the battlefield. Draft of Camaraderie is the passive skill. Randomly links to an allied champion, back row prioritized, so I would think you might want to put him in the middle position because he's a mage, or somewhere around there. As long as the link exists, both champions have their attack speed increased by 30% and damage dealt increased by 25%. When the champion heals, the linked ally will also receive 35% of the healing amount. This recovery effect is normal healing. When the linked ally dies, the spell will link the champion with another allied champion. Now this is really interesting because it can cause a sort of like domino effect of healing, and just if you can really get him linked up with your big damage dealers, that's potentially a really powerful combo, at least as far as the passive goes. However, the passive is not going to win you the game. We've got to look at the active and the ultimate. The active skill, which usually goes off next before the ultimate, says suppress magic circle. Creates a magic circle at the caster's location and the furthest enemy target's location that lasts for 5 seconds. And 5 seconds can be a long time in the game. Enemy targets within it take damage equal to 150% of the caster's strength per second and will be inflicted with silenced. That's potentially huge for whoever is in the back row or ends up being the furthest champion away, but it's often your back row heroes. Allies within it have their damage dealt increased by 20%. So again, I think that the passive and the active that we've looked at so far are incentivizing you to put him in the middle position where he can affect as many allied heroes as possible, and then really take care of, it's obvious he's here to like hate on those back row types of heroes a lot like an assassin might, but he is a mage, so he gets to keep his distance, not put himself necessarily quite as at risk of having damage dealt to him. All right, so I think that's an extremely powerful active skill. Let's look at the ultimate, because I think this is what's going to make or break him. Breeze of Resuscitation. Cast the spell continuously, restoring the champion's constitution by 60% of their max constitution for 4 seconds. And I think sort of like a Galabar, if this is really vigored up, this could be hard to deal with if you're going up against it on defense. The recovery effect is true healing, which is unaffected by any debuff, but is affected by recovery prevention effects, of which there's a lot. And there's a lot in the meta. So just kind of take note of that. When channeling, the champion becomes immune to control effects and the damage taken is reduced by 40%. I have a problem with this ultimate, and that is that it's doing a whole lot of passive stuff. There's nothing super exciting here that's helping you to actually win the match. And if you're not doing active damage with your champions, which not all of them need to, you better be shutting your opponents down and giving your damage dealers the time or the life they need to be going off. And I worry that this ultimate is not enough. And the ultimate is supposed to be the thing that when it goes off, you're more likely to win. So I really, really like his passive. I think his active skill is one of the better ones in the game. And, you know, there's the potential for that to do a lot of damage, 150% times 5. And if you have, brutal on him and a lot of vigor, that could potentially be a lot of active skill damage. So I'm seeing that he could potentially be useful in certain circumstances, like when you're in Luxus tournament and can't use ultimates, or maybe in a situation where there's a whole lot of bulko and people aren't debuffing either through traits or through hero skills. So if there's not a lot of buffing going on and ultimates aren't at the forefront of what's happening in a match, he can be very good. However, that's not the meta most of the time. In Valley of Conquerors and Guild Conquest and arena matches and all over the game, ultimates matter. And he doesn't have a very good one in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe we'll test it out. You can correct me in the comments. But I think that his use case is going to be very narrow, but in those narrow use cases, he can be pretty good. It's just that makes him a toolbox hero. It means you'd level him up, set him off to the side. You're probably not using him until you got him in the right situation in Luxus or something like that. But let's take a look at the female now. So her passive is Gathering Storm. Enters the battle with 6 neutral orbs. Whenever an ally or an enemy casts a skill, summons an amplifier orb at its location. For every amplifier orb summoned, the champion restores 40 energy and gains a permanent shield with health equal to 1.5% of their max constitution. It is really hard for me to tell if this passive is going to be good, because what catches my eye the most is that permanent shield and like how much of that can possibly build up through a match. And so I think that's going to depend on how tough it is to actually kill her. Let's take a look at the active skill. Tearing Cyclone. Creates a cyclone in the most crowded area that lasts for 3 seconds. Already, I wish it lasted a little bit longer. Like, when you think about a tornado or a cyclone or something like that, though, like, maybe they need to tone down what it does a little bit to let it last longer. But just for the sake of flavor, we should have a cyclone or a tornado that comes in and it's spinning and creating a lot of visual havoc on the board. I think if you're going to go this route, just have it like moving champions around, like getting them displaced. And that's what I would hope to see. But here's what we actually get. Allies within the cyclone restore 70 energy per second, while enemies in the cyclone take damage equal to 160% of the caster's strength per second. So what we actually get is not bad. Like it's actually good. I'm a big fan of first of all, good art. I like collecting heroes and I like collecting cards and things like that just for the sake of collecting them and having them. And so I always appreciate whenever the art matches the skills and just all the flavor fits together. And I don't think the flavor fits together here. For those of you who might be in a different culture or speak a different language and you're looking at this on Translate, flavor refers to taste usually, but in this case it's referring to just how everything feels when it's all together aesthetically, and how the skills are working together, and that it matches and it makes sense and it has logical reasoning. And I don't I don't think the Cyclone matches what's actually happening here, which is your heroes are gaining energy, the opponents are taking damage, but it's not really moving anyone around the board, which is what I wish it would do. Not for any reason other than I just feel like that's the way it's supposed to be. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that one. 3 seconds later, summons an amplifier orb at each unit's location within the Cyclone. So now we're getting a lot more orbs. All right. Here is our ultimate, Surge of Hurricane. Awakens all orbs, each randomly applying one of the following effects either to an ally or an enemy. For allies, the orb restores 40 energy and reduces the duration of the control effects inflicted upon them by 20% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 layers. For enemies, the orb deals damage equal to 160% of the caster's strength and drains 40 energy. Amplifier orbs will be consumed by the ultimate skill, so they go away. However, the neutral ones will stay. I have to say, overall, with all these orbs, because this is a new mechanic, it's really hard to tell how good this is going to be. But there's some things here that have promise. The fact that it's speeding up your own heroes, and it is punishing your opponents with damage. I even think there's the potential here that she could be dealing a lot of damage, and the longer the match goes on, the better she's potentially going to get. I am uncertain how she's going to perform, because this hero was literally just released like while I was eating dinner, and I came out, and I don't make these videos. Like, I know that they release the heroes a couple days in advance to look at these things, but I don't like to make videos till the day of, because they often change things, and I want to take a good look at the trait and how that impacts everything too. But I think there's the chance, without having tested it, to see a lot of damage coming from these orbs potentially. But it's really hard to say until we get testing. She's the one I'm most interested in testing. I also feel like she's the most flexible, because I think she can be used in Valley of Conquerors and Guild Conquest and Luxus and regular arena and against all the bosses. And I don't think that you have to work too hard to make her good. I think the male is much more of a narrow use case, and I think she's a much broader use case. And she's either going to sink or swim. I know that kind of analysis is like, of course, she's either amazing or she sucks. Duh. But I think that there's a lot more mysterious upside for her probably than downside, but she is unique, and it might take some tinkering around with her. Overall, I think this clan, there's just such powerful mages within Bloodline that the sense I'm getting is other mages are more powerful than this clan. However, because there's so many good mages, you're incentivized in the Guardian Stone to just load everything onto the mages, and that means that you already get bonuses to this if you've really worked on your mage section of the Guardian Stone for this clan to be potentially pretty good. So what do I think? Is this one I'm going to go after? I may, especially because we've got a mask that we can get, a reward. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go into your events. And then let's look at, it's probably in, which one is it? It's over here. Yeah, the jigsaw. Okay, the mask increases crit rate. Potentially a good mask to get if you want to, and especially if you have a lot of stones, which I do. So I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about summoning for this clan. I think the female's more intriguing. That's the one that I would like to test, but I'm curious what you're going to do. So, of course, let me know in the comments, especially if you've already done it and you're testing. Share with the community. Let us know how it's going. And if you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. And I will catch you in the next one.